I honestly think, I didn't hear the last part, but thank you. I honestly think that, you know, I never took lessons to play music. Like, I think I took maybe about 2 guitar lessons, and I was learning how to play, like, Mary Had to Learn the Little Lamb, and I was just like, fucking, I want to learn Zeppelin, like, I don't want to learn. So I just sort of figured it out by myself. And the same with drums, I didn't take lessons to do that. Just as I didn't take lessons to make a movie, you know? I didn't take lessons to do a lot of the things that I'd done, but I was really passionate and driven and focused enough to figure it out the way I do it. And I really believe that if there's anything in life that you want to do, that you just have to have that passion and the drive and the focus to do it, but you can't worry about how it's supposed to be done, you know? Because I don't think there's a right or wrong way to make art or music or film or any of that shit. You know, one of the reasons why, when me and my buddy, Jim, just say hello to the audience. This is my buddy Jim Rhoda, who produced the movie. That's Jim. The two of us, we've known each other for a long time, and he's a musician, and he's been to Sound City a bazillion times, and all our friends work there and stuff. When we found out they were closing the studio, I kindly, gently offered to buy the board, because I really thought it was going to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I didn't or Rick Rubin would get it. I didn't think I would ever get it. And then they sort of decided that they wanted to sell it to me because they knew I'd fucking use it. So I said to Jim, who's got a camera, and he knows how to edit stuff, whatever, I said, let's make a short film, just like a YouTube clip, to pay tribute to the board, you know? And then I started calling everyone, like, hey, hi, Rick Springfield, this is Dave Grohl. You know? I'm making a movie, will you talk to me? And one by one, every person was like, yes, I'll do it, yes, I'll do it, yes, I'll do it. Until finally I realized, wow, this isn't like a 10-minute thing, man. This is like, this is good, this could be a film. And, but rather than go to like a movie studio, like a big Hollywood fucking movie company or whatever, and say, hey, could you help me do this? I thought, wait, I could do this. I mean, I could tell this story. If you and I sat at a bar for an hour and 47 minutes, I'd tell you the exact same fucking story. And so I know, like, all of these people that are willing and capable to help, but I don't want anyone to tell me what's right or wrong. Because who the fuck is that? Like, who's to say what's right or what's wrong when it comes to making a movie? Or making a song, or playing an instrument, or doing any of that shit, because it's supposed to be your own personal expression, you know? I mean, this is entirely me and my friend's idea. It cost me a fucking fortune, you know? But I mean, it was our idea. So why let somebody else mess with it, you know? And so, to answer your question, like, I've hardly... well, first of all, I never aspired to be like a director. Who the fuck wants to be a director? You know? I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be the best drummer in the Washington, D.C. punk rock scene. That's all I wanted in life. I worked at a furniture warehouse, and I was like, that was cool, but if I could be the most kick-ass drummer, you know, there was just like personal goals or whatever. But I really honestly believe, and you know, it goes along with the message of the film, that the accessibility and availability of the technology today, any of you could do the same thing with your fucking phone. You know what I mean? Like, you have the tools available to you. All you need is the passion and drive and focus and a good idea, you know? You can't just pick up a computer and expect it to write a song for you. You can't pick up a computer and expect it to make a fucking movie for you. You have to have it. That's the human element. That's what we talk about all the time, you know? And so it's important that you have those things before you start in. The passion and the drive and the focus. I sound like Tony Robbins right now. But I'm serious, you know? It really is true that if you want to be a fucking oboe player, Take lessons, because that's really hard. Oboes, I don't know about that shit. Who knows? Yes, you, all the way over there. In the white shirt. Sit down, guy. You. Yes, you. Are those your pajamas? Did you just get back from the gym? What are you doing with that thing on? Okay, sorry. Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to actually ask, you've been in Nirvana, you've been in Foo Fighters, you played with Songs for the Deaf or Queens of Stone Age.
Yeah.
What did you take away from each one of those experiences?
Well, you know, one of the good things about playing with other people is, it's one of the greatest luxuries of my life, is that I get to jam with a lot of people. And it's awesome, because everybody plays differently. It's again, from the movie, when Mick Fleetwood says, I think a lot of people, you think that you can do it by yourself. You can do this by yourself, all on your own, but you'll be a much happier human being if you do it with other human beings. Part of that is when you play with different people, nobody plays the same, you know? Like Josh from Queens of Stone Age, he plays guitar a lot different than John Fogerty. And Fogerty's different than John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones is different than Paul McCartney. And it's like everybody plays differently. And so when you play with that person, you play differently. You don't always do the same thing. And so you learn from the people that you play with. And it's like you wind up with this big bag of tricks, you know? And it just makes you, like a deeper musician, you know? Man, it might not make you better, but like it gives you a sort of a wider dynamic or range or perspective or something. It's good. I mean, it's like, I feel so bad for the guys in U2 that they've never fucking jammed with anybody else, you know? It's like, why don't people in bands jam with other people in bands, you know? Don't get stuck in the same thing. So, yeah, so it's one of the great things about jamming with other people is that everybody plays differently, and it's really pretty awesome. Okay, next question. You with the hat in the air.
Three-part question. Sorry.
God. What is this, a college? Sorry.
First, what is your favorite song ever recorded on that absolutely beautiful Neve board?
On that board?
Why?
Oof, that's tricky.
And then, do you want to make some music later tonight?
I do. I do. But no. My favorite song on that board, shit, man. You know, honestly, one of my favorite records made, that's tough, dude. I mean, it's funny, when Rhoda and I went over there, when we filmed the removal of the board, we asked Tom Skeeter, the guy that owns the place, we said, hey, give us a list of all the records that were made there. And he was like, are you fucking kidding me? It was like 100,000 records or whatever. A lot of records were made there. And so he gave us the short list. And you've heard most of them. And there's a lot that you probably haven't heard. But one of the coolest records that was made there was this Frank Black record. If you don't know who Frank Black is, his real name's Charles. Charles is the singer of the Pixies. And after the Pixies, he started a solo thing called Frank Black. And at first it was just Frank Black. And then he had a band called Frank Black and the Catholics. And the first Frank Black and the Catholics record, he'd been writing all these songs with his band and rehearsing, and they went into Sound City to make demos. So they set up all their stuff, and they got the sounds up, and instead of recording to like a 2-inch 24-track tape, they went straight to a 2-track, just like a 1/2 inch or whatever. And they recorded the songs live. And they listened back, and they're like, wait a minute, this sounds really good. Why isn't this the record? And so that became the record. Just those guys in the room playing straight to the 2-track. And it sounded fucking awesome. And it sounds so good that, to me, that's kind of, those are my favorite records, you know? I mean, I like dead mouse as much as the next guy, you know? But I really do like it when musicians go into a room and play, and it sounds like people in a room fucking up, you know? Like, I like that about stuff. But that's a hard question to answer, dude. There's so many great records that were made there. Another great one was like that Rage Against the Machine Killing in the Name of song, right? So I had no idea that they made the record the way they made it. I thought they went in and made the record just like everyone else. But they went in there, what Brad and Timmy told me is they went in the first week, they were like kind of nervous and it didn't sound right, and they weren't getting good takes, and they were, you know, and then they told the producer, like, you know what, just, how about this? Can't we just bring our friends in here and set up some speakers and just make it like a show? So that scene where it's like a handheld video camera filming them playing that song, that's the take of the song that you hear on the radio. Like, that's the same. And so the audio from the microphone on that VHS camera is the same sound that you hear on the radio, but just through the board. And it was like, it just blew me away that's what it should be all about, like capturing that moment, you know? I mean, imagine if you had audio of like the Gettysburg Address, you know? Amazing, right? It'd be like fucking amazing. I consider that to be the same thing. It's a moment in time that's been captured and shared with the world and has inspired millions of people to pick up instruments or pick up a book or pick up a record or whatever. I think that's pretty awesome. Next question. You, rocker guy.
After 30 plus years in the music industry,
I'm sorry, after what?
After 30 plus years in the music industry, just playing around at all the gigs.
25. Just keep going.
All the bullshit, the drugs, the partying,
Yeah.
around you not being reliable, music, you know, just all the other bullshit
Musicians.
you have to deal with. How you got through that? Like when Scream broke up in LA,
Yeah.
you were penniless there. How did you move on?
I mean, honestly, you know, music, a lot of people, when people ask me about like career advice, like I'm an aspiring musician, well, what advice do you have for me, like a career in music? I'm just like, you know, you have to be happy playing music just for the sake of playing music. You just do, because like when I was in Scream or when I was a musician back in Virginia, I was fucked, dude. I'm a high school dropout. I worked manual labor. I couldn't even get a job in an office, you know? But I got to play music on the weekends, and that made me happy, and I wrote songs and played with other people, and because I was playing that punk rock music, I just never even imagined I could have a career in music. Like, I just never, because who the fuck was gonna listen to that in 1987? Like, you know, people like Michael Bolton and stuff like that. There's no way me and my friends were gonna have a band that could ever pay the rent. It just wouldn't happen, you know? But it was okay, because we just liked playing music. And I quit doing drugs when I was like 20 years old. I'll smoke weed maybe like twice a year. But I quit fucking around by the time I was 20. And I mean, I've seen so many people get fucked by doing drugs. Like, so many people. You guys are young, and you guys get to figure that shit out on your own. But me personally, I'm telling you, one of the reasons why I could get my ass up here to come do this Q&A for you is because I can get my ass out of bed every morning, you know? And I honestly, I never would have achieved a lot of what I've achieved if I'd been fucked up. Like, it just wouldn't have happened, you know? But as a musician, like, you just have to like playing music. And you have to understand, like, you're dealing with musicians. And that's a pain in the ass. There's a life lesson for you. Yes, with blonde hair.
Do you think it's possible to capture the human element in electronic instruments?
Absolutely. Why not? You know, one of the greatest things, man, the Daft Punk record. I love that the kings of electronic dance music fucking hate computers now. You know, a lot of the press that they've come out and they've been talking about the human feel of and how important it is to their music, to dance music, or they feel like maybe something's been missing in the last 5 or 8 years with a lot of the stuff. But yeah, I really do. I mean, you know, when I listen to early Public Enemy records, you know, I hear like variation or deviation or some sort of imperfection in a lot of those samples or a lot of the beats or the loops, you know. Recently, I gave a speech at South by Southwest, and one of the things I was talking about, one of the points I was trying to make, was that the most important thing is that whatever you're doing, that it's a representation of your voice, right? So, say you're using a computer, or you're using an oboe, or you're a drummer, or you're a vocalist, whatever it is. The most important thing is that it's really your voice, that it's coming from you, right? But it has to come from you. It's so fucking easy just to, you know, grab a loop and hit play and let it do its thing. Fuck that. That's somebody else's loop. Like, that's somebody else's beat, man. Make your own fucking beat. Take that guy's beat and fucking step on it and fuck it up and then put it out there. Make it your own. You know, you do that. Like, I have always loved, whether it's like craft work. I mean, I was one of the first dorks in my neighborhood to get like a Prodigy record, you know, in like 1990 or whatever it was, or 91, you know. I didn't have a pacifier and a glow stick, but like I was, you know, I liked the idea. Thank you very much. I liked the idea that these people were doing something new. It didn't matter if it was a fucking computer or a drum machine. It was like something new, you know. It was really cool. But lately, what is that? The last 2 days, I had pool parties for like my kids' friends and all this shit. So my wife turns on Pandora to like the Blockbuster hit station. It was like apocalyptic. I was terrified. I was like, the human race is going down such a dangerous path. We're all gonna fucking die. Everyone's worried about like asteroids and shit. It's like, fuck that. Turn on the radio. Like that'll fucking scare the shit out of me. So I listen to that and I just don't hear anyone. You know, it's just like, it's like two stupid fucking people talking to each other. There's just nothing there. It's devoid of anything. How could that be? It's terrible. So the most important thing, I honestly think, is like, you have to be able to take whatever it is that someone else is using, make it your own, or just do your own thing. Like, don't rely, don't be a fucking... Don't get me started. You know, but that's, you know, I do believe that that you could do incredibly, that you could do something new with whatever instrument it is that you're using. And Trent makes a great point in the movie too, where he's like, you know, now that this is available to everybody, is there a whole lot more great music out there? Not really, because you have to have something to say, and you have to have a voice, and I think that's the most important thing, you know, not just to like hit play and go, hey, check it out, look at that. Yes, down here.
If you could have been in one band throughout the course of history, what would it have been and why, and not Creed?
You know, I've been lucky enough to have jammed with all the great people that I've jammed with, so I couldn't ask for more, like, you know. Led Zeppelin. I mean, come on. That was an easy one. Yes, you down here.
How do you think having your own voice? How do you think having your own voice applies to non-musicians?
Well, it's this, are you a writer? Are you a painter? Are you a fucking drywaller? Are you working a furniture store? No, I'm not kidding. Like, when you meet a snowboarder or a surfer, and like when I look at them, it's like, oh yeah, you're just kind of going like this down the hill. But if you talk to their friends, like they see style and they see signature in everything that they all do, And it's, having your own voice, fuck, man. Like, what are you passionate about? Go inspire other people to be passionate about it too. That became a mission with this movie. At first it was like, wow, let's make a rock documentary. And then it was like, no, wait. The most important part of this movie was that we go out and we inspire people to want to do the same thing, but with whatever you got. Like, what do you got? You got something to give, fucking do it, because no two people do anything the same. So it's kind of, your voice applies to everything, I guess. Yes, with the glasses.
Okay, I'm such a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Nice flannel. So grungy.
so like in the movie, how did you tread that like whole emotional feeling when you talked to him? It was like, how did you get in that? I guess like how did you deal with that outside of it?
No, I mean, I've never really interviewed people. I've been interviewed a bunch of times, but I've never really interviewed anyone. So at first I was kind of nervous. It's funny you mentioned him because he was the first one I did. I'm like, oh my God, I have to interview the guy from Fleetwood Mac, and I've never interviewed anybody really. And it was easy because all I had to do was talk about music. Now I can fuck do that with anybody. So to sit down with him and talk about feel or composition or his history, which a lot of us know, it was pretty easy. The hard part was editing this movie together because I talked to each one of those people for like 2 hours. I talked to Petty for a long time and talked to Neil Young for a while, and they said so many inspiring things, The last question I asked everybody was, what's your advice for the next generation of musicians? And the shit they said was so inspiring. It was unbelievable. But that's a whole other movie. So it was pretty awesome. I mean, even if I just had the honor of sitting down with these people and talking to them as I did, without any movie, without a microphone or a camera on, I would still feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Also, can you sign my graduation cap? I know you're a high school dropout, like your music's not. Oh my God.
What the fuck is that supposed to be? I'll think about it. Yes, you. Please be gentle. Okay, don't call me a high school dropout. Thank you.
So, I mean, the film talks about that human element of music. Was
Yeah.
there a certain, like, event or moment in time where you thought that was being lost, or was it like a gradual, intuitive thing as you've been a musician?
She's asking about the human element of music and if there was a time where I started to feel like that was being lost. I mean, it's funny, as a drummer, like when I grew up, my favorite drummers were crazy, Keith Moon from The Who. Like he always played drums like he's just insane. It made no sense. He would never do the same thing twice. Or John Bonham, greatest rock and roll drummer of all time, as far as I'm concerned. But he wasn't a perfect drummer. His tempo would move. There was ebb and flow to it, and you listen to live bootlegs, and there's like he's just out of his mind, which made him awesome, And so probably like around 98 or 99, most recording studios started getting Pro Tools. And people started realizing the ability or what these things could do, you know. And it was nuts. Like the options to manipulate a performance were endless. You could do anything. You could take someone that couldn't sing and you could put them in tune, or you could take a drummer whose tempo was like this and straighten it out. And then, so somewhere along the line, that became the norm. Like, you turn on the radio and you would hear everything was getting like tooled, you know? And my first reaction was like, oh my God, who are the kids, who are the youth of today? The kid drummers, who are they gonna look up to? You, Dave! Thanks. Next question. I'm kidding. No, what I was gonna say, thank you for that. What I was gonna say was that, like, you know, how the fuck can you have a favorite drummer if they all sound the same? You know? If everybody sounds like a machine, where are you gonna find a Keith Moon? Or where are you gonna find, you know, I would turn on the radio and I just listen, like, God, where's the drummer? Where's the drummer? Then I'd hear the guy from the Black Keys. I'm like, there's a fucking drummer. All right, we got a drummer. And then you hear like Meg White. You're like, there's a drummer. All right, we got a drummer. But for the most part, it's kind of like, I just want my daughter to listen to a record and think, I like that person's voice, and I like that person's drums, and I like that person's guitar because it doesn't sound like everybody else. Because that's what's going to inspire her to do the same thing that I did. So when Pro Tools started like dominating the recording process, it was like, whoa, okay, I can understand, like, okay, it's efficient. You can do it in your bedroom. It's great, it's available to everybody. But what a lot of popular modern producers started doing was just kind of cleaning it all up. God forbid it have any inconsistency, because if it does, it might not get on the radio. And if it doesn't get on the radio, then it's not going to sell. And so all of a sudden, everything just started sounding like tinsel, you know? And it was like, I don't know. So I just started, that's when I really started thinking, like, wait a minute, is this going to get worse? So, but I mean, I think it's like, it's coming around. It's one of the, honestly, it's one of the reasons why, like the Adele record. You know why Adele sold 1 trillion records? Because she's good and it sounds like Adele. She's got a beautiful voice. What's that? You keep record did so well is because you listen to it and you're like, oh wow, that person has like a voice and there's actual emotion. And I think the song might actually mean something, you know? That's what I think. Yeah, you.
What bands do you listen to that maybe we've never heard of?
You know who I really like that I just got, okay, there's one band that I know nobody's ever heard of because fucking they made one record and disappeared. They're called Late of the Pier, P-I-E-R. You know Late of the Pier? How rad is that record? It's amazing. And then they just disappeared. They were like kids. They're like 18-year-old kids that made this crazy record that's so good. And nothing ever happened to it, and it's such a drag. I really like that Japanese band Mono. Do you know about Mono? We know Mono. Mono's awesome. I mean, but honestly, and I'm not fucking kidding around, I like that Gentleman song by Psy too, so I'll listen to tons of shit. So there's lots of music that I like. Yes, you over there in the corner.
So I saw the Foo Fighters on the White Limo tour in Long Beach, and that was really fun. I got to hang out with Taylor and Pat and Chris. And it was really cool to hang out with them, and I got them all the center seat except you just saying I had it with me.
Is that the question? What?
A small tour like that.
Oh yeah, I mean for us that was, after we made the record, we started practicing it doesn't really pertain to the movie or anything, but we were like, cool, let's go out and do these little shows just to get warmed up to go play the big shows, and we'll play the whole new, we'll walk up on stage and go, hey, you want to hear the new record? And then we'll play the whole new record, and then do another 2 hours of old shit. So we were sitting with the people at our management company, who we've been with for 25 years, and we're like, here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna play the whole record when we get, you know, in these little clubs. And they're like, I wonder what the repercussions of that would be. Like, it's gonna be on YouTube, and people will hear it before it comes out. I wonder if that's, it was like, what's the big fucking deal? If it's any good, it'll make people excited to go get it. The end. I don't really know where I was going with that. But yeah, maybe someday, that would be fun. Yes, you, yeah.
When you're making the album to go along with this movie, was there anyone you felt like you had really good kind of creative charisma with in the room?
Yeah. Yep. Couple. I mean, yeah. I'm just kind of thinking right now. Yeah. Well, I love playing with Josh so much. Like, he's a dear friend of mine, and he's one of those guys that if we sit down to make music together, it usually turns out okay. And it's because we like each other as people. Like, that has a lot to do with it, I think. So sitting down with him and Trent was like, oh God, it was so fucking fun. I mean, that was like a 4-hour day or whatever. It was just get in there and do it really quick and then get out. That was pretty awesome. I mean, the McCartney thing, you kind of can't beat that. But, you know, the one thing, the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club guys, as the credits started rolling, the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club guys were in the film. And that was awesome, because that was a great example. I'm not kidding. That's the first time I've felt that feeling since I was in Nirvana, where like the two of them are funny because they don't really talk. I'm a spaz, you know. They don't really talk much, so there's not a whole lot of like, I think that verse is too long. Let's cut it down to 2 and make sure we do the pre-chorus before the big finale. Like, they don't talk about stuff like that. You just start playing and the song becomes the song, which is a great way of doing it. There's a great purity to that there's no like sort of contrived thought. It's just like, it's like a divining rod, you know, like, oh, the song's going here, I'll go there too. And that's the way that song came together. Then it's those songs that you're usually most proud of because it's entirely instinctual, or it's a great representation of, or expression of whatever you're feeling. So those guys are really pretty awesome. Yes, red shirt man.
I have a question about like songwriting and I guess the creative process
Mm-hmm.
in general. It seems like anyone who really, really loves music can like completely different kinds of music, from Slayer to Glenn Miller,
Yeah.
just as much, and feel just as connected to it, just as inspired by it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how do you think all these different inspirations and influences kind of distill down and manifest into what you make, what your sound is?
Well, I think that when you listen to music, there's a reason why you connect to certain music, you know? One of the greatest things about music is that even without a lyric, you can tell if it can make you feel a certain way. Like, you'll hear a song and it sounds sad. Well, what does that mean? Why does a song sound sad? Is it because is it a minor chord that makes it seem melancholy or sad? Or if something's major and like with an upbeat tempo, why does that make you happy, you know? And so it's like, for that reason, I think you connect with songs because of something inside of you. You know, there's a reason why I like Psy. You know, because I connect. I can really relate to him or whatever. But, you know, I mean, there's something about like that in every song. And you recognize that feeling, and that feeling recognizes you. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a mystery, you know? Like, I know that I play the drums the way I play the drums because I listened to Led Zeppelin records for like 13 hours a day for 6 years of my life, you know. But there's other things that you like will just pop out of your head every once in a while, and you're like, where did that come from? Oh yeah, that's, you know, Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street, and it was just stored in the back of my mind, and I'm unintentionally ripping him off, you know. So I think that everything you hear and do just kind of stays back here, and eventually it just comes out somehow. Okay, I'm gonna answer a couple more. Yes, you. You. No. You.
What are your other passions? Do you have any other passions?
Nope. Not really. No, I don't. You know, it's funny because I always like, I want a fucking hobby or something else, you know? I wish I could like whittle wood or fish or something. I just don't want to. I want to play music. That's pretty much it. Yeah. The Velvet Jones? I don't remember why we picked Velvet Jones. Probably Shiflett. Our guitar player, Chris Shiflett, is from up here. And I think that's why we picked it. It was fun. It's a good place to play. Yes, you. Yeah.
Since technology has become so dependent in everyone's lives today,
Yeah.
especially music, what are some of your personal views on the future generation
Of musicians?
of music, like in general?
You know, okay, I gotta tell you. I'll tell you two things. I don't know if it's gonna make any sense. I just remodeled my house. About a year ago, we had the meeting with the interior design person and the tech guy. Because you fucking need one now. So we have this meeting. And they're like, okay, what are you thinking about like the entertainment system in the house? Because we want to put in this thing that has like touch pads on the wall, and you can control the temperature and the lighting and the volume and the fucking hot tub or whatever, like all by this brain. And I said, you know what? Here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that if I get that, within a year, it'll be completely obsolete, and that someone else is gonna try to sell me some more bullshit. Because the house where my fucking grandmother raised my dad still has those like push button on and off switches on the walls. They're like 80 years old. You know what? They still fucking work. You just have to get your fat ass off the couch and touch them. Okay? That's the first part of my answer. The second part. Recently, I came home with the Beatles vinyl box set. And it's a big black box. It says Beatles on the side of it. Now my kids love the Beatles. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I've already completely brainwashed them into liking the Beatles. So I come home with this and they're like, what is that? Oh my God, what's that? I'm like, this is the Beatles box set of the records. These are the records. And I think they'd seen records, but they weren't really sure what they did. So I open up the box and they're like holding it. You know, they're used to music being, you know, an icon this big, and they click, nope, I don't like it, click, nope, I don't like it, click, nope, I don't. And so now they're holding this album. There's like booklets and artwork and posters and shit falling all over the place, and they're just like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I take the turntable and I put it in Violet's room, and I teach her how to do it. I'm like, here's the deal. Take it out of the sleeve, and you look, it says what songs are on this side, but there's more songs on the other side. And if you look, you can see where the songs are by the spaces. And you put it on the turntable, and you put the needle down, and there you go. And so she's like, wow, she's, you know, she's like, where's Blackbird? And I'm like, that's the White Album. So she gets the White Album, and where's Yellow Submarine? And so I split, and I come back half an hour later, that shit is all over the room. Album covers, and she's in there by herself, like dancing, you know. And it was the exact same experience that I had when I was her age. Like the same records. She was doing the same fucking thing that I did 40 years ago in my bedroom, which to me said a lot. It had nothing to do with technology. The music had nothing to do with technology. She had the same response to this music and this experience that I did 40 years ago. So what that said to me is that people don't change. Human beings are human beings. We're not fucking robots. We do not become obsolete. We're just people. So the experience and the reaction that we have to music will be the same 40 years from now. There might be a different way to listen to it, or there might be a different, it'll be a completely different world. But the response and the experience that we have with music will always be a human one. Our end of the deal will always be a human one. So, I don't have like, I don't really think that popular music is apocalyptic nightmare shit, I just kind of, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for my daughter to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm waiting for her to like grab some friends and go in the garage and start a fucking band and sound like crap and then write a good song and then play a good show and then become the biggest band in the world. Because that's how it happens. You don't need to stand in line and then go like sing to some celebrity judges on a TV show and have them say like, nope, you're not good enough. Like, fuck that. 'Cause that's not how it works. It might seem like maybe that's been how it is in the last 4 or 5 years. Just wait until everyone's entirely fed up with that shit. And you'll get some kid that'll do exactly what I said. Be a badass that goes into his garage with his friends and fucking makes the best record you've ever heard in your life. Because that's exactly how it happens. Okay, I'll do 2 more questions. Guy in the red shirt right there. Absolutely. I honestly believe that that's the best way to just be a musician. Because you know what? If you play live and nobody wants you to see you play live, then maybe you should do something else. If you're really good at what you do, people will come and see you do it. It just happens that way, I try to explain that to people, and sometimes they just don't get it. Like, wait a minute, how can you be, how can you be successful as a musician? It's like, yeah, go, if you're really great, man, go play as much as you can, because you'll get better, too, you know that. Like, the more you play in front of people, the better you get. And the more people you play in front of, usually, the more people you play in front of. And the more people you play in front of, the more people you play in front of. So I think that live performances, because also like what's more awesome than like watching someone with an acoustic guitar? It's like a piece of wood with some strings on it. Just like fucking tearing it up, like real shit. That will inspire someone to want to play music. Like, wow, I could do that too. That's all I need to do? Is like pick up an instrument and do it? Without all the smoke and mirrors and shit, like to really go play. I think it's totally important. I think it's one of the most important parts. Yeah, you right there.
I want to first say that on the inspiring part, my band is here.
Yay, band.
Yeah. Anyway.
Don't suck.
So we were talking about how we want to play now, but
Good.
quick question: do you have pre-show ritual?
Pre-show ritual?
That you've done for like forever?
Honestly, it's like 3 Coors Lights and a shot of Crown Royal. I mean, nowadays with the Foo Fighters, it's like we play these long shows, man. They're like 2.5 or 3 hours long. They're long. And at my age, maybe a couple Advil too. But just, you know, I think the best way to warm up for a performance is to laugh. Like, with our band, you know, we've been friends for a long time. We're like a family, you know, bands are like, they're usually just sort of like gangs, you know? And so our best shows are usually the ones where we're in a great mood when we get on stage. And then, you know, you have a good show and you're in a great mood when you get off. But we don't do like, yeah, I get nervous, fuck yeah. Recently I had to, at my daughter's talent show. They announced that they're having a talent show at her school, first grade. And she's like, ooh, I know what I'm gonna do. I wanna do Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with Abby and Libby and Chloe and all her friends. So my wife calls all her friends moms, and all her friends are like, Sergeant, what? The fuck is that? Like, you know, nobody really knows what it is, right? So then the week of the talent show, she's like, Mommy, is the talent show this week? And my wife's like, boo, we didn't sign you up because your friends didn't want to do it. She was like, what? She completely flipped out. And I'm just sitting there staring, looking at her like, oh God. So I said, boo, if you really want to do it, you know, we can do Blackbird and I'll play guitar and you sing. But you got to take it seriously. Like, we got to practice every day and every morning and all that shit. And it was awesome, but it was so funny. She's like, yeah, I really want to do it. So we practiced before bed. The first time we do it, she fucking nails it. It sounds awesome. Like, she's got a really good voice. So it's, so the next morning, I wake her up and it's time to go to school. It's fucking 6:15 in the morning. I wake her up, and she's like, Daddy, we should practice. And I go, you want to practice right now? She goes, no, my voice isn't warmed up. And then she nailed it. It was awesome. That was great.
I think my younger cousin either followed or came before that talent show.
Oh, really? Yeah, we blew the roof off the joint. That's how we do. Way in the back.
So which one happens more often? That somebody's music makes you like their personality, or somebody's personality makes you like them?
You know, I gotta be honest. I fucking don't even care if my friends like my band. Because I have so many friends that are in bands that I think suck shit. So I never let bad music get in the way of a good friendship. I know a lot of musicians. I'll go see their bands. And you know what? I'll tell them it was a great show. So, but, you know, but I tell you, when you meet an asshole, you immediately dislike their band. It's true. When you meet an asshole, it's like, I don't like your band anymore. All right, this is the last question, so you gotta make it good.
Okay. In the film, the Need Board is a central character, and
Yeah.
you tell a story that's past and present. What's next for the board as a character?
Well, it's in my studio. So she's asking about the board, and that was the central character, and what's next for the board. That thing, just like my grandmother's light switch, will be making albums long after I'm gone. Because it's such a simple piece of equipment. You know, it's like plastic knobs and metal and some wires and shit. It's pretty simple. And as for, what do I know? I could never put one of those things together. But it will continue to make music, and it will always be in demand. Because as much as programmers all over the world can try to simulate or emulate what that thing does, you can't. It has a personality of its own. That Neve 8028 sounds nothing like that Neve 8028. And if it's too hot in the room or if it's too cold in the room, like, it has moods, you know? Like, it really does. So there's no way to recreate what that does. So that board is, it's a fucking hero. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to make the movie because when most people listen to albums, they don't take those things into consideration. You know, if it weren't for that board, those albums wouldn't have sounded that way. If it weren't for that room, those albums wouldn't have sounded that way. If it weren't for Paula, or Nick, or Siobhan, or Tom, or any of those people, those albums might have never happened. So it's those things that people don't take into consideration. There's a whole lot behind every record or every song that you've ever heard. There's a story, and there's a life, and there's people, you know? And it's one of the great things about music is that it's entirely human, you know? And so that board, as the central character, that's what it represents. That's what Sound City represents. You went to Sound City for that board and for that reason. And that's what I hope inspires people to get involved in any way they can. Whether you're making coffee or you're producing the record, you're responsible for the end result of that record. That's just the way it is, you know? So, I'm glad you guys stuck around. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah.